Merry Christmas, Jazz fans. You just got your superstar re-signed for 5 years. It's a lot. Let's talk about it. It's the Hoops Nerd Show. All right, guys. It's a big day for Rudy Gobert and a big day for the Utah Jazz. Rudy Gobert will be on the Jazz for 5 years at $205 million. It's a massive contract. It's the biggest contract in NBA history for a center, going to Rudy Gobert on the Utah Jazz. Let's dive into it a little bit. First off, I personally am excited. Mentally, I had been preparing myself for the worst. I had started to wonder if this week I was going to have to start doing Rudy trade videos because the deadline for this Supermax was tomorrow. So this was a big weekend and a big week this week. And so obviously the Jazz kind of saw that deadline coming. They wanted to make sure Rudy Gobert was on the team, and they made it happen. Just a little thing to think about. When Giannis signed his Supermax extension, he was the marquee free agent of this next offseason. When he signed that, it really made Rudy Gobert the top guy. I mean, some people would say Kawhi Leonard is the marquee free agent, and perhaps he will go to that free agency period, and so that makes Kawhi number one. But number two is Rudy Gobert. My guess is that Kawhi just re-signs with the Clippers. I don't know where else Kawhi is going to go. I mean, he can go anywhere he wants, but really, Rudy Gobert was going to be the top guy because I'll be surprised if Kawhi's not on with the Clippers. And it's beyond Rudy Gobert. There's not a lot. So Rudy Gobert was going to be the kind of main free agent target for most of the teams out there. He was going to get a max deal from somebody. Somebody was going to say, you know what, we'd like to have a top 10 defense in the league and make the playoffs every year for 4 or 5 years. So we're going to sign Rudy. And that's what the Jazz knew. And so the deadline for this Supermax was tomorrow, Monday. Today's Sunday. Tomorrow's Monday. It was the deadline. And if they didn't get that Supermax done, then they were going to probably go into free agency with Rudy Gobert, getting his head turned by other teams with other options and other cities and things like that. Now, I know Rudy Gobert likes living in Utah. He's built an incredible palace. I mean palace. That house he lives in is unbelievable. He's built on it for years. He's really created a home here in Utah. He's beloved here. It's a perfect situation. Utah's designed that team around his strengths, both on the offensive and defensive end. And it's just a perfect situation in every way. And so it made a lot of sense for this deal to happen. Because of that free agency that was coming up with Rudy Gobert, he really held all the leverage here. And he could go into the negotiations saying, I want this big contract, or I'm going to let myself be swayed by other teams. And Utah could not afford to do that. Now, it's obvious Utah did not want to give the Supermax. And so obviously this isn't a Supermax. It's why Woj is not saying Supermax in his tweets, and Tim McMahon and all them, but it's $205 million. Supermax, I believe, is like $225 to $250 million around there. I'm not totally sure what the numbers are, but it's massive. And so it's not technically a Supermax, but it's pretty close. It's 5 years. So it is kind of like a hybrid Supermax type of contract, not technically. So I guess technically the Jazz get what they want, and Rudy Gobert gets what he wants. He's the highest paid center in the history of the NBA. It's a massive, massive contract. And Rudy earned it. He earned it because he's been All-NBA 3 times, I believe, and he's been an All-Star, and he's been Defensive Player of the Year, and 2 of those qualify you for a Supermax. So Rudy technically and legitimately has earned the Supermax, and the Jazz are giving him close to that. Utah probably was looking for different avenues here. They obviously did not come to this easily because it would have happened a lot sooner. And so obviously there were just some sort of negotiations going on, but things just didn't roll really well for Utah in this situation. And if the goal was to save money, honestly, the goal overall through this whole thing was to sign Rudy Gobert, because that was the best case scenario. So this is the best case scenario for Utah in terms of getting the player they want, a player they sign or drafted, develop, he turns into a superstar, and they keep him. So it's best case scenario. Now, you could quibble about the money, and it is a lot of money. Like, there's no way around it. It's a lot of money, and it's a big portion of the Jazz's cap. But that's what happens when you sign big players like this. Now Utah has Donovan Mitchell locked in on a max, Rudy Gobert close to a super max. They're the cornerstones. And the good thing is that Utah has filled this entire roster with shooters that fit a very distinct style. whether it's Mike Conley, Royce O'Neal, Joe Ingles, Bojan Bogdanovic, even the bench guys like George Niang, good shooter. The new guy, Elijah Hughes, good shooter. Jordan Clarkson is having an incredible shooting year and continues to do that in preseason. Just scorers surrounded by high-level defensive players. So you've got Rudy Gobert at center and then Derek Favors backup center. So it's fantastic. And then they even have Udoka, who I like. With this signing, it makes that Udoka pick. I mean, he's a good player, and I'm excited to see how he goes. But you have Rudy Gobert and Derek Favors. You're not going to see a lot of Udoka. But the Jazz have him as insurance for this 4-year run, which is basically what he is. The Jazz are a contender now for the next 4 years minimum, and they're going to be contending for that title every year. They might not be better than the Lakers or the Clippers, but they are always going to be in that mix. And you never know if Donovan Mitchell takes a step or if the Jazz are able to make a big trade of some sort, like the Toronto Raptors did, where you trade like Mike Conley for a 1-year, piece. Maybe Utah does something crazy and signs James Harden for Mike Conley or something crazy like that. Probably not, but something of that ilk is the Jazz can do. They can make some sort of move and make big moves to try to win titles every year. But at the very minimum, they're going to have 2 big-time players on their team, 2 top 15 to 20 players that will compete every single year. Now, the trolls will come and say, well, guess what? Sorry, good luck, but you're not beating LeBron and AD. Well, no one else is. No one else in the league has LeBron and AD on their team. But if you have 2 top 15 level or around their level players, you are going to compete every year. And you never know. LeBron with the Cleveland Cavaliers had a big 3 each time, but multiple times you saw like Kevin Love get hurt or Kyrie get hurt. Who's to say that, there isn't a fluke injury with one of these top teams and the Jazz find themselves with a path to the finals? You never know. But you can't find out if you don't compete. And getting Rudy Gobert means that you compete for that title. So this is a big time thing for Utah. It's a lot of money, but Rudy Gobert is worth the money in terms of his impact on the floor. That was one thing I wanted to say. So many of these max players, it's an offensive max extension. AD, I think you can argue, is a both defensive and offensive monster and is worth every penny he got. It's funny that Rudy Gobert's making more than him, and that's what the Supermax does for Rudy Gobert. But most of these guys are offensive players. John Wall got the Supermax. Steph Curry got the Supermax. Totally worth it. Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul. All of these guys are kind of offensive superstars that play at least good enough on the defensive end. Rudy Gobert is a defensive superstar. He is a generational defensive talent. He's up there with Mutombo and Ben Wallace. He is absolutely a Hall of Fame level defender. He can, during this contract, he may very well earn a 3rd or 4th defensive player of the year. He's going to be locked in. Last year, Rudy was frustrated, I think, because he wanted to prove his value. He wanted this Supermax. He wanted to prove that he was worth it. And I think he got out inside his own head a little bit, trying to prove that. And now we see that he is going to be, locked in with the contract. He can just compete. And there's one goal, winning a title. And guess what? There's other things Rudy can win. Let's say the Jazz go to the finals. Let's just pretend like things go nuts and Utah just takes another step and they go to the finals and Rudy Gobert can win things like finals MVP. He can win all sorts of accolades. He can win another all-star spot. He can win another defensive player of the year. He can win another all-NBA spot. It's his league now to just dominate. And all Rudy Gobert now has to do is win. Doesn't need to worry so much about getting post touches. Doesn't need to worry about doing all the things that he probably thought he needed to do to prove his value. What he needs to do is what he does best, and that's defend the rim better than anyone in the league has done maybe in the history of the NBA, and roll to the rim on offense, set screens, open things up for others, and dunk the ball. And that's what all he has to do. And guess what? That's a championship formula for Utah because they've surrounded him with shooters, with elite playmakers, and Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, and they have a 6th man of the year candidate in Jordan Clarkson, and elite shooters all around him. So the Jazz they are built to compete. And these next 4 years are going to be a very fun golden age for the Utah Jazz. This is the fruition of what Dennis Lindsey and Justin Zanuck have been doing for years. And it's now here. And now Jazz fans just get to enjoy it. Guys, Merry Christmas. Rudy Gobert is the present that you find under the Jazz Christmas tree. Enjoy that present because it's a good one. Is it an expensive present? Yes. But guess what? The most fun Christmas presents are usually pretty expensive. So enjoy this Rudy Gobert max extension, guys. Supermax-ish. I like that ish. Guys, that's all I got. Like and subscribe to the channel. And SLC Dunk, go to slcdunk.com. Make sure you're reading all the articles. I will talk to you later.